only show that is 3 dimensions away from the Thunderbolts being called the New Avengers. I'm your host 3D Jake, and today we're looking at the Thunderbolts, released in 2025. Thunderbolts is directed by Jake Shearer and is written by Eric Pearson and Joanna Colley from a story by Jake Shearer and is based on the Marvel Comics characters. The movie stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Olga Carrera, Lawrence Pullman, Geraldo Viswani, Chris Bauer, Wendell Pierce, David Harbour, Hannah Jo Kamen, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. The movie is essentially a movie about a group of villains that were kind of anti-heroes. You have villains that are people, some of that were villains in other movies and some that are anti-heroes in other movies, and they all team them up together that are essentially meant to kill each other by another person to wipe out her, all of her baggage. Essentially, basically, there's a woman who, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who she basically is under investigation right now, and so the Thunderbolts, all these people she has doing jobs for her, so she essentially hires them all, to basically get rid of their, existence and basically wipe them out, so that way it stopped her, clear her history of sorts. They basically have to kill each other, but then when I realize they're just killing each other, they basically say, hey, we need to go confront this woman. And it turns out one of them that's there is actually a project called Sentry, who basically she wants to make him basically a Superman who basically can be unstoppable. I really enjoyed this movie. Like, when I first saw this movie, I really enjoyed this movie, and I thought it was really well made, well done. I really like the fact that you have this character. You have a character, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is essentially she's kind of like the Amanda Waller of the group, and this movie draws a lot of similarities to the Suicide Squad movies. Essentially, what happens is you have Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is a character who essentially, is like a person that is not a really nice person, and then she basically has to get the team. And I was expecting them just to be get them out of prison and stuff, but a lot of these people aren't really in prison. A lot of these people, I think there's only 2 or 3 villains on the team. And essentially, and they're not really in prison. They went none of them have been in prison, and I think it's really cool though that they basically end up teaming up, and you could tell that some of them are the unwanted hero. Like, for instance, you have Wyatt Russell, who plays basically John Walker, who is basically secret agent is what he's called in the comics, but he's the new Captain America. Well, he was in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and he basically is trying to regain his recognition, because he went from being the new Captain America, then he kills somebody, and then he's basically a villain. People see him as a monster and everything. He's a super soldier too, and it's just I really like that idea that he's trying to redeem himself, because he has nothing now. All he has is the mission, because his wife left him and took the kid, and he's basically a nobody now. And I also like that you have Florence Pugh, who plays the Black Widow's sister, and now she's the new Black Widow, and she's doing jobs for her and everything. And then when she realizes she's basically the team leader, and then you have the Winter Soldier, Bucky, who basically is, an unwanted. He joins the group later on in the movie, because he basically captures them, and then it realizes that they're actually not the villains here. Natalia Nukorshev, something. She, Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character, she's the villain of the movie, and so. And I like how her assistant and Bucky are kind of talking. She's spilling the details to Bucky and everything. I thought that was really cool. And I like David Harbour. He's the funniest character of the movie. He's the Black Widow's father, and basically, and they keep having this back and forth throughout the movie. He wants to be part of or join the top secret task force. And then at one point he's driving a limo service, and he drives a limo and overhears everything. And then he shows up in a desert and goes, "Hey, I'm over here, Yolanda. I'm over here." It's so funny. I thought that was really fun. And also Bob is a great character. Bob, who's he's basically the villain of the movie, but he's a character who who's "Hey guys, I'm Bob," and everything. And he's just and he turns out he's basically Superman. And only when he gets evil, he has an evil side that can turn people into shadows. And it's really cool. I really like the idea of that. I wish it was not explored as it should have been. I feel like there could have done more with Bob. Also, one of my issue of the movie is I don't like that the runtime it feels so short. They're in the vault, and then all of a sudden they're in New York, and then that's really the third act of the movie. And I'm I hate when movies do that. I feel like when they rush through. I feel like I hate when I feel like it's rushing for the finish line. I want to sit with these characters, let them fight Bob again, let them fight Bob, lose, and then like let them go, and like let the people attack in New York and stuff, let them come back and face him again or something. I hated that it was just like, oh, we got our ass kicked by Bob, and then we're gonna fight him, and I'm just like, come on, like I really wanted more on this, I hate when movies do that, it's like I hate when I watch a movie in the middle of the movie is the ending, is the third act of the movie, and I hate that more than anything. I like when it builds up, like The Dark Knight. You have all these sequences, like the middle sequence is not even like the Joker and the car, see the chase sequence. The third act is more or less, it starts progressing to like when you get to the hospital, and the hospital is really the third act. It's like and then it becomes the third act. Is like that's not even the third act. Third act is like the tower where the Joker's at. I thought that I really want more build up like that. I really really hate when you have build-ups and the build-ups don't even pay off. And I think I really do like the fact that you have Bucky in the movie and everything, and the trailers never wowed me, and the movie was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Like I do like that you had the Black Widow and her father and everything, and I like that. And I also like the fact that you have Bucky and everything, and I also like and then you got John Walker and everything. And there's something in the movie that I'm like, they're trapped in like this place, okay, and all of a sudden they're like, how do we get up to the elevator? And I'm like, why don't they do like they did in G.I. Joe and just crawl up, back to back, And I'm like, they do that, and I'm like, yay! See, I'm smart as the movie, And so it's like, then of course they all try like a funny scene where they're like, oh, I got a snake, don't sneeze, do not sneeze. The pepper, 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 and like, and everything, and just stuff like that I thought was pretty great and everything. Ghost is actually a really good character too. I'm surprised because she's really mostly the villain of the the Ant-Man too. And and like I just think that out of everything, her and Taskmaster were the two villains. Even though Taskmaster, spoiler, dies in like the first 10 minutes of the movie, like she goes, shoots her in the face and kills her, and I'm like, wow. I mean, they really shouldn't even put her on the poster because I'm like, really, that should have been like a secret cameo. That way, at least then I would have been upset, But now I'm just like, they marketed her in the entire film, and then like in all the posters, everything, and instead she just gets shot in the face and dies. I'm just like, wow, that was just okay then. And apparently this script's there's been several. This movie went through several drafts. At one point, like John Walker was going to turn into the Red Hulk and all kind of stuff. And I can see why they wouldn't want John Walker to turn the Red Hulk because Captain America just did that with the Red Hulk. So I mean, you don't want to make it redundant, And I also understand, like at one point, I guess they were like there's other people that were going to die and they end up in the void and just different things were going to happen. And I honestly am glad what happened because I mean going having Sentry put them in this illusion and everything, and they're just sitting there and like and everything, and all of a sudden you see like Bob apparently has a past. He's like, oh, I used to do meth for a living, and I would work in a chicken suit and everything. I'm like, wow. And then you see them fighting Bob in a meth out Bob in a chicken suit, which I thought was hilarious. Even though I'm like, and then like all of a sudden Red Guardian's like, Bob, if you hit me again, I swear, it's like, and I do like how they get branded as the New Avengers and stuff, and I thought that was really cool how they did that, and everything, the New Avengers. And I like how, like, at the end you see them all, like, being labeled, like, Time Magazine, the New Avengers and everything. And there's even a post-credit scene that sets up the Fantastic Four, movie and the Avengers Doomsday, where, like, you have them at the end watching the Fantastic Four ship land up coming to Earth. And apparently that scene was shot on the set of Avengers Doomsday. Like, that scene was shot by the Russo brothers. They said they shot that a couple of weeks ago. And so I thought that was interesting. I do like how, like, Black Widow is essentially the lead of this movie, the new Black Widow, and Bucky is more like the secondary character of this movie because he's trying to expose, and then Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character and everything. And I do like there's one scene where they try to kill Sentry. Her assistant does and blows his brains, and all of a sudden she goes, I want a raise. And all of a sudden Sentry comes back because he's so powerful. He just comes back and becomes a shadow creature. I thought that was awesome and everything. Him just destroying things left and right. I thought that was really cool. I do just kind of wish it had been longer. And I kind of wish that they would have had more, team. I like the team dynamic, but I wish maybe the Bucky turns into the Winter Soldier for a second. I actually, because the trailer made it look like he was going to turn into the Winter Soldier and try to take him down, the Thunderbolts. But instead, that doesn't happen. And I also hate that they call it the Thunderbolts because it has nothing to do with General Ross, Thunderbolt Ross. I honestly thought he was going to have a role in this movie. And, I kind of was let down that it wasn't like a Suicide Squad-esque movie. It's just more or less just a buddy team-up movie. I would say it's closer to like maybe like, the other guys, then I would say it's closer to like James Gunn's The Suicide Squad or The Suicide Squad 2016. But I did enjoy the movie a lot. I do think I like Captain America: The Brave New World more than I do like this movie. But I think it's a fun movie. I mean, is it something I'd go and see in theaters again? No. But I mean, it was a fun movie, and I'll definitely buy it on Blu-ray. If I had to give this movie a score, I'm gonna give it a B+. Thank you so much.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.